samsaradava nalalita loka tranaya karuna gana ganatvam praptasya kalyana gunanavasya vande guru shri charanaravindam Mahaprabhu kirtana nitya gita vaditra madhyan manasarasena romanchakampa sutarangavajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Shri Vigrahara Dhananityanana Shingarathan Mandira Marjanado Yuktasya bhaktam saniyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Swadana Triptan Haribaksha Sangram Kritraiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Shri Radhika Madhava Yodapara Madhurya Leela Ganarupanamnam Pratikshanasvadana lolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Nikunjayo no ratikeli sedhai Ya yali vir yukti rapekshaniya Tatrati dakshadati vallabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam साक्षादारित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भाव्यते वसादि किन्तु प्रभोर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसाद न गति कुतोऽपि जयं स्तुवां स्तस्य यशः श्रीसाद्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसारी गौर भक्त वृंद चैतन्य नित्यानंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद चैतन्य नित्यानंद जय श्री कृष्ण Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nilamadava, Radha Nilamadava, Radhe. Jaya Radha Nilamadava, Radha Nilamadava, Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jai Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sita Ram, Jaya Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishnu Pada Pamhamsa Pradipacharya Ashtota Shudha Shri Srimad Divine Grace Aparchana Vrinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya PBD founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Pamhamsa Pradipacharya Ashtota Shudha Shri Srimad Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridasa Kuti की जय। प्रेमी से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। मायापुर धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी तुलसी देवी की जय। समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय। All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladadadaine. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Shilatankanakalaye. Ito nasimha parato nasimha. Yeto yeto yami tato nasimha. Bahi nasimho hrudaye nasimho. Narasimhamadim sharanam prapadye. Tava karakamalavare naka adbhuta shringam dalita hiranyakashipu tanubringam keshavadrita narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Tava karakamalavare naka adbhuta shringam hiranyakashipu tanubringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jayo Narsinghadev, Jayo Narsinghadev, Narsinghadev, Jayo Narsinghadev. Jayo Prahlad Maharaj, Jayo Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jayo Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. श्री भक्ति विघ्न विनाशक नरसिंहदेव भगवान की, भक्ति शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की, श्री प्रभुपाद की, का प्रेमानंद।
विष्णु भक्ति प्रादि देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः। वृंदायाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियायाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रादि देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः। तुलसी महाराज की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः प्रेयसी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी जो तुम्हारा चरण ला तारा वांछा पूर्ण हो तारा वांछा पूर्ण हो कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास विलास कुंज दियो बास नारायण मेरी बो सदा जुगल रूप राशि ओ सदा जुगल रूप राशि निवेदन द्वारा सकिरानुगात कोरा नादारा सकिरानुगात कोरा सेवाधिकार दिए कोरोनी जरासी दीना कृष्ण दास हो ये नमोरा हो श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम साधा ये नबासी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणस्यान्ति प्रदक्षिण पादे पादे यानि कानि तानि तानि प्राणस्यान्ति प्रदक्षिण पादे पादे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणस्यान्ति प्रदक्षिण पादे पादे पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणस्यान्ति प्रदक्षिण पादे पादे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणस्यान्ति प्रदक्षिण पादे पादे Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Jaya Tulasi Maharani Jaya Tulasi Maharani Jaya Tulasi Maharani Jaya Tulasi Maharani Jaya जय बृंदे देवी जय बृंदे देवी जय बृंदे देवी जय बृंदे देवी नित्य गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौरा हरि बोल वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवशाय च विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः श्री वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवशाय च विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः श्री वृंदाय तुलसीदेव्याय प्रियाय केशवशाय च विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः
for years, I think it's our traditional life to see the birth. We should turn the more than the tree. When all sense, all is peace, and should be ready to all respect others. In such a state of mind, we can change the meaning of our song. Oh, Almighty God, I know you guide us into us. I only want to cause his devotional service first after first. O Sama Arjuna, I'm an eternal servant. Just on the mother of my devotional person. Lifting up from social life, lifting up from hiding in clothes. Oh my Lord, all my heart declare to the good as well. When the house is being tranquility. One word my voice shows up. One word serve my body and meditation. Oh Lord, King of salvation, the woman, the light of the woman. Here is the husband, I have acquired the rain. All being in the world in our absence. I know no one but Krishna, my Lord, and shall remain so. And if we rub the guys in the face, makes me broken hearted and not being present with God. He's complete, free to do anything, everything. He's always my virtue, unconditionally. She is Shri Mangala Aarti. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Salakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Brahmanam Dharati Bhavasmatam Hitam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuga Bhagavatam Shri Guru Vaishnava Shri Rupam Bhagavatam Sahana Raghunatam Hitam Samsadivam Sadhaitam Sadhutam Garitanam Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamsya Namaham Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nami Namaste Sarvate Deve Gauravani Vacharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhasaya Vishyarini Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namini Shri Vartamani Devi Vedaya Prabhaktaye Krishna Sansanda Vijnana Dayine Bhutale Namaha Madhurya Jala Premade Shri Rupa Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karna Shakti Vigrahaya Namaste Namaste Gauravani Shri Mutaye Vijnantarine Rupanuga Viruta Pasitanta Harine Namo Purusharaya Mutaye Vikrambara Sambodhi Namo Bhaktivinodaya Satchitananda Namine Gaura Shakti Svarupaya Rupanuga Harayate Gauravya Bhava Gopistun Yadeshna Karina Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Vaishnavaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devascha Patitanam Bhavebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavanyaya Krishna Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurasya Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishna Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktavyam Namami Bhaktashaktam He Krishna Karna Sindho Lina Bandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta
Mama Manda Matyakati Matsarvasva Gurjo Divya Dvintaraya Simhasanastito Shimabhava Shivadevo Vistali Sevimana Smarami Shiman Rasa Sarambi Famsita Tatastita Kasamin Swayam Gotir Govinatakstriyestuna Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we are on Canto 3, Chapter 8, and verse number 6, which says, Muhur Grananto Vacha Sanuraga Sakalat Padenasya Kritani Taj Gana Kirata Sahasra Mani Praveka Padyotito Dama Pana Sahasram. Muhur, again and again. Grinanta, glorifying. Vachasa, by words. Anuraga, with great affection. Sakhalat, padena, with symmetrical rhythm. Asya, of the Lord. Kritani, activities. Tat Gyana, those who know the pastimes. Kirita, helmets. Sahasras, thousands. Mani Pravika, glowing effulgence of the valuable stones. Pradyotita, emanating from. Uddama, raised. Fana, hoods. Sahasram, thousands. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The four Kumaras, headed by Sanat Kumara, who all knew the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, glorified the Lord in rhythmic accents with selected words full of affection and love. At that time, Lord Sankarsama, with his thousands of raised hoods, began to radiate an effulgence from the glowing stones on his head. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Lord is sometimes addressed as Uttama Sloka, which means one who is worshipped with selected words by devotees. A profusion of such selected words comes from a devotee who is fully absorbed in affection and love for the devotional service of the Lord. There are many instances in which even a small boy who was a great devotee of the Lord could offer excellent prayers in the choicest words for glorification of the pastimes of the Lord. In other words, without development of fine affection and love, one cannot offer prayers to the Lord very suitably. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The four Kumaras, headed by Sanat Kumara, who all knew the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, glorified the Lord in rhythmic accents with selected words full of affection and love. At that time, Lord Sankarsana, with his thousands of raised hoods, began to radiate and effulgence from the glowing stones on his head. So this is first of all, when it says Lord Sankarsana, it's referring to Anantadeva. So Anantadeva is an incarnation of Lord in form of a snake, but not an ordinary snake. Therefore, this snake is explaining the Vedas to the four Kumaras. So just imagine how glorious this snake is. And he has thousands and thousands of raised hoods. In fact, in other parts of Bhagavatam, it explains that Anantadeva is the source of gravity, because his innumerable number of you would call them, what do you call them? His innumerable raised hoods are actually holding the planets in their strict and predictable orbits. Okay, so here we see one cannot really recite choice words and prayers to the Lord unless they have what's called, unless they're fully absorbed in affection and love for the devotional service of the Lord. Notice it says, for the devotional service of the Lord. So without devotional service, one cannot make any real advancement. You can be a great scholar, you can be a great scientist, you can be a great this or that. But without practical devotional service, you'll be a failure spiritually. So therefore, the whole purpose of reading Shastras is to become convinced that you should be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. And that is with love and devotion, or as it says here, fully absorbed in affection and love for the devotional service of the Lord. Now, some people might say, how can I do that? I have to work, I have to support my family, I have to do this, I have to do that. But devotional service to the Lord is not difficult to do. Like everybody eats, so before you eat, you make an offering of the food that was prepared for the pleasure of the Lord, according to the taste of the Lord. And you make an offering to the Lord. And if you do it sincerely, then he offers it back as his prasadam. That's not a difficult thing to do. And you say prayers during the offering, and of course you chant Hare Krishna. Again, not difficult to do. So if you just do that, chanting Hare Krishna and offering your food, and then praying that the Lord accept the offering, and then he offers it back as his prasadam, that's enough to purify yourself and develop this taste for not only devotional service, but actually love for the Lord. The love goes gradually from Guru to Krishna. Love and affection. The Guru who takes the time to instruct, and there's Shiksha and Diksha Gurus. There's not just the initiating Guru, there are Shiksha Gurus also. People who are devotees who are fully qualified to teach you and teach all of us Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So we have basically 360 degrees of Guru. There's initiating Guru and there's Shiksha Gurus. And Prabhupada is the primary Shiksha Guru in ISKCON, because we have his books and we read the books that he has translated every day. So we're getting Shiksha from Prabhupada every day, as well as from qualified devotees who speak the words and commentaries of Prabhupada and the verses of the great acharyas, as well as in Bhagavad Gita, the direct speaking of Lord Krishna. And it says, in other words, without the development of fine affection and love, one cannot offer prayers to the Lord very suitably. Well, if you just chant Hare Krishna, that's offering prayers to the Lord. And you can go further by repeating the prayers and spoken by pure devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, like Dhruva Maharaj, like Parikshit Maharaj, like Yudhisthira Maharaj, like Arjuna. All these people are speaking very, as it says here, fine affection and love while they're offering these prayers. So you don't have to make up any prayers. You simply repeat what the devotees, pure devotees, have spoken about Krishna. And you have the Brahma Samhita, you have the Ishopanishad, you have so many speeches by pure devotees in the Srimad Bhagavatam. You just, if you're at a loss of how to pray to God, don't make anything up. Just repeat these prayers. These prayers are perfect. And there's plenty of them in the Srimad Bhagavatam and, of course, in Bhagavad Gita. And then Prabhupada says, there are many instances in which even a small boy who was a great devotee of the Lord could offer excellent prayers in the choicest words for glorification of the pastimes of the Lord. Well, that was Prahlad, that was Dhruva, that was Narada Muni. They were all young boys, like 5 years old or 7 years old, and they were speaking very profound words of love for Krishna. So we have all that, all their speeches in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, and in Nectar Devotion, and especially in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So you don't have to, you're not at a loss of trying to find these verses. Prabhupada translated them. And therefore, if we simply repeat them sincerely, then we will also please Krishna with these choice words, as it says here. Selected words full of affection and love, and in rhythmic accents with selected words of affection and love. Okay, so then yesterday we were talking about neutrality and equality, and we got to a certain point and then we had to stop. So I want to continue this because it's very important points. And as we said yesterday, once one attains the stage of Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, Nasochati Nakangsati, Samaksarve Subhute Sumad Bhaktim Labhate Puran. This is a description of the devotee who's been practicing Krishna consciousness very meticulously. It means paying attention to every details. The more you pay attention to the details of Krishna consciousness, the more successful you are in following and staying faithful to the vows of devotion that are made at initiation. So you have to, as there's a saying in English, the devil is in the details. So, in other words, if you don't read carefully, like let's say you have an insurance policy, right, for car insurance or house insurance. If you don't read all the fine print, this is really small print, and there's a lot of it, you could be misled. And if you have an accident, you could find out that your policy does not cover that type of accident. All the time you're under illusion, thinking, oh, I'm really covered well. But you didn't. But the devil is in the details. You didn't read all that fine print in that in the text that they send you, and you have to sign it. So if you pay attention to the details of devotional service, then you would be very successful. And there are a lot of details that you have to follow. Not only the 4 regulative principles and the 4 things you should do every day. The 4 regulative principles are things you should not do, and the 4 regulative principles are things that you should do. Okay, so you have to know that. But then there are the 10 offenses against the holy name. And then there's the offenses against the holy Dham. And then there's offenses against the devotees and people. So there are a lot of fine details, and you should be aware of all of them. And that way you won't make mistakes. And of course, if you come regularly to class, you'll be able to hear about all these fine details. So it says that this Brahmabhuta stage is a liberated state. And it's a state in which one has self-realization. After attainment of this Brahmabhuta stage, however, one is satisfied. But satisfaction, or prasanatma, is only the beginning of transcendental bliss. So it's not enough just to have attained prasanatma, self-satisfaction and happiness. It's only the beginning of transcendental bliss. So one should progress by attaining neutrality and equality in the relative world. And passing this stage of equanimity, one is fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So equanimity, I explained yesterday, means complete calmness. You don't get disturbed by anything. Okay. So when you become free of sochiti and kankshati, lamentation because you lost something that you cherished, and hankerings, strong material desires that you just can't get out of your mind. So when you're free of those 2 things, then you become prasanatma, or self-satisfied. However, that's not enough. That's only the beginning. So it's hard enough to come to that stage, but it's only the beginning of transcendental bliss. Okay. So this is the instruction of the personality Godhead in the Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion is that in order to maintain the status quo of Brahmabhuta stage, in other words, always stay in that level of being free from the influence of the modes of material nature and the 3 types of miseries, adhyatmika, adhibautika, adhidaivika miseries, you need what? To maintain yourself in that Brahmabhuta stage. So, therefore, you must come to a superior level of neutrality and equality. Now, what does that mean exactly? This is explained in the, we begin with another interesting verse, which is Matra sparsas tukonteya sitosna sukudukudaha agama payano nityas tam satikshasva bharata. 2nd chapter, Bhagavad Gita, 14th verse. We didn't cover this yesterday. And this says, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O Skyana Bharata, O Arjuna, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Well, this is a very important point. Learning to tolerate without being disturbed. So many people cannot do this. They get disturbed and they can't tolerate. And therefore, they remain entangled by the laws of material nature. So, how do you build up your ability to tolerate things? That's why there's neutrality and equality. That's why we're discussing this, because it's superior to simply prasanatma. Prasanatma is great. You've to attain that state, you're free now from the modes of material nature and from the three types of miseries. But you can go back. You can also fall back unless you advance to the state of neutrality and equality. Okay, so in this verse 214, in the purport, Prabhupada says, in the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. This is a very important point. Whatever is happiness and distress in the material world is not eternal. It's temporary. It's going to come to an end. In fact, every problem in the world is solved over time. Because people move away, people die, people get sick, and so forth. So all the enemies will disappear if you're willing to tolerate. All the problems will go away if you're willing to tolerate. Build up your toleration factor. Most people have a very small toleration factor like that. Right? But devotees, they have a toleration factor like this. Say, it's huge. Why? Because they know that everything in the material world is temporary. The happiness is temporary and the misery is temporary. Therefore, they're not disturbed. They learn to tolerate things. And if you don't have this ability to tolerate, that you become mad right away and use bad language or have a fit of, let's say, despair or a type of revolt or insubordination or whatever, then you're making a big mistake. There's this one man that told me once, he's a devotee, he said, "Can I talk to you privately?" I said, "Okay, what is it?" He said, "I'm going to kill my team leader." I said, "What?" He said, "I'm going to kill my team leader." "At work?" "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, I'm going to kill him." I said, "How come?" He said, "Because I'm a Maharashtrian, and we don't tolerate being insulted. All he does is insult me all the time." I said, "Well, I don't know if that's good." He said, "I don't care." I said, "Look, it's the wrong thing to do." "Why you say that?" I said, "Because nothing is permanent in the material world. So if I was you, I wouldn't even think of killing your team leader. Just tolerate and wish him well. Pray to Krishna that he gets good intelligence to do the right things and behave properly." He said, "It will never happen." I said, "Listen, there's no never here in the material world. Everything is transitory. Everything's going to change. Just be patient. You'll see." So begrudgingly he said, "Okay." So 1 year later, his 1 or 2 years later, his so-called boss got another job. And when he was leaving, he recommended this devotee to take his position to the owners of the company. And then he came to me and told me about this. I said, "See? If you killed him, you'd be in jail right now." Right? But because you tolerated, he recommended you to be promoted. Well, this is why matra sparsas tu konteya sitosna sukadukutaha agamapayino nityas tamstatiksha svabharata. This verse, 2.14. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer season. They arise from sense perception O Skayana Bharata, O Arjuna, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Now, is it easy to do that? No, it's not easy to do it. Can you do it? Yes, if you're serious about Krishna consciousness. When I say it's not easy to do it, well, because of our false ego, but as our false ego is purified, then it's easy. Oftentimes, people come to me and they're really upset and say, "Oh, my husband insulted me," or the husband said, "Oh, my wife insulted my mother and father." Right? And I said, "That's good." He said, "What? What do you mean it's good?" I said, "Because if you make a vow that every time you're insulted by anybody, your wife, your kids, or people outside, your family, if you make a vow to chant 5 extra rounds every time you're insulted, then the people that insult you are actually your guru." He said, "I don't understand." He said, "No, they're your guru because you made this vow that you're going to chant more that day. So the more they insult you, the more times you chant 5 extra rounds. So they're actually like your guru. They're inspiring you to chant." He said, "I don't understand this." I said, "What do you mean you don't understand? You make a vow that whenever you're insulted by someone, you'll chant more rounds that day. Therefore, they are inspiring you to." So now, is that a difficult thing to understand? No, it's not difficult. You see, you can learn in 2 ways from people. You learn from a pure devotee like Prabhupada the right way to act, and you learn from these rascals that insult you or insult your family what not to do. So you're learning from both. You're learning what to do, and you're learning from the others what not to do. So they are acting like a guru, in a sense. That's what this is all about. It says, in the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. Now, in life, there's going to be a lot of these non-permanent appearances of happiness and distress. You have to learn to tolerate them because they're not going to last forever. See? According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magha, or January, February. It is very cold at that time. But in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season in India, of course, a little different here. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principle of the Kshatriyas, and although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge, because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of Maya or illusion. So, in other words, if you stick to doing your duty according to your varna and ashrama. Now, in Krishna consciousness, our varna can be fluctuating, but our ashrama is one. We're aiming at Brahminical status. And the brahmanas have to be tolerant, and they have to be perseverant, and they have to be free of enemies or friends. They have to have this neutrality. Now, what is neutrality? Well, this is explained in the verse 520. Na prahishyet priyam prapya, no dvijet prapya cha priyam. Stira buddhir asamudo, brahmavid brahmani stitaha. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant or laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence. Okay, now the purport Prabhupada says, okay, so first of all, in this verse, he says, you're not, let's say, exuberantly happy because of some success, and you're not disturbed by failure, right? And because you have self-intelligence, meaning basically you're self-realized, you know that there are three levels of knowing God: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And you know all three. Therefore, you're self-realized. And you engage, because you're self-realized, you engage in Krishna's service. And anytime you have free time, you come to the temple and offer service, or you're doing some service in your home for your deities. So there's always the symptom that you have become advanced spiritually is you never waste a moment in your life. Whenever there's a chance for service, you take it immediately. Okay, so then it says, the symptoms of the self-realized person are given in this verse, 5th chapter, 20th verse. The first symptom is that he is not illusioned by the false identification of the body with his true self. He knows perfectly well that he is not this body, but is the fragmental portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, there's two ways to express that we are part and parcel of Krishna. One is saying part and parcel, and the other is saying fragmental part. Both phrases describe how we are an individual and Krishna is an individual. But Krishna, we are only conscious of our body, and Krishna is conscious of all bodies. Therefore, he's the Supreme Personality Godhead individual, and we are the subordinate jivatmas, and our duty. So Krishna is the proprietor of everything, the controller of everything, and the origin of everything, and the end of everything. So therefore, our duty, if we understand these things, is to be engaged in Krishna's service. All our activities should be dovetailed to Krishna, because he is the supreme proprietor. That means that he owns everything, including our body, our mind, our intelligence. So we should only use these things in the service of Krishna. Otherwise, we'll forget Krishna and get entangled by the laws of karma. Okay. He knows perfectly well that he is not this body, but is the fragmental portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna is eternally an individual, and we are eternally individuals, but we are subordinate to the Lord, and we are meant to serve the Lord. He is therefore not joyful on achieving something, nor does he lament in losing anything which is related to his body. This steadiness of mind is called sthira buddhi, or self-intelligence. He is therefore never bewildered by mistaking the gross body for the soul, nor does he accept the body as permanent and disregard the existence of the soul. This knowledge elevates him to the station of knowing the complete science of the absolute truth, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. He thus knows his constitutional position perfectly well, without falsely trying to become one with the Supreme in all respects. Okay. This is called Brahman realization or self-realization. Such steady consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. So this is a definition of neutrality, where, especially when it says, no dvijet praptya priyam. So, na ud vijet means does not become agitated. Prapya cha apriyam, upon obtaining something unpleasant. Nor does it become ecstatic and on achieving something, you know, let's say successful. In both states, he remains neutral, and therefore his mind does not waver in this duality of happiness and distress, riches and poverty, fame and infamy. He doesn't get disturbed by these things. And he knows that all these things are temporary. In the material world, everything is temporary. Okay. So then there's equality. So equality is explained first by the verse Brahmabhuta prasanatme nasuchiti nakanchati samaksarve subhute sumad bhaktim lapate param. And it says, one who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, okay, so see, he's equally disposed toward every living entity. That is equality. Right? And why? It's going to explain it. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. So now we know what the symptoms are if we're not actually Krishna conscious. We might, even if you might be chanting, you might be trying to follow regulative principles, but if you're not equal in happiness and distress, and you have some prejudice against some people, like you have friends and enemies, then you're not actually advancing in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so now it's going to explain. It says, to the impersonalist, achieving the Brahmabhuta stage, becoming one with the Absolute, is the last word. But for the personalist, or pure devotee, one has to go still further to become engaged in pure devotional service. This is another major difference between the Mayavadis and the devotees. When the more one becomes a devotee, the more they engage in devotional service. The more the Mayavadi advances, he gives up devotional service and takes up meditation on nothingness, as the Buddhists do, or meditation on the Brahman effulgence, the light. So we see there's a major difference between devotees and Mayavadis. At one point, Mayavadis will give up any service that they're doing in order to achieve liberation. But because their liberation is not perfect, because their understanding is not perfect, they will fall down. In the material concept of life, when one works for sense gratification, there is misery. Okay, this is a law of nature. If you work for sense gratification, you're also going to suffer. This is explained, 5th chapter, and it's in many different places, but one is the 5th chapter. Let's see, what is it? 18th verse, is it? 5th chapter, 20th. 5th chapter, 22nd verse, where Rishabhadev tells his sons, my dear sons, there's no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure while in this human form of life. Such pleasures are available to the stool eaters, the hogs, the pigs. Rather, you should undergo penances, in other words, tapasya, in this life by which your existence will be purified. And as a result, you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. So that's a verse, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 1st verse. Prabhupada now says, therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the causes of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. This is a law of nature. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. Just like I know somebody, when he was younger, for many years, he was chewing tobacco. You can go into a 7-Eleven store or a store in a gas station. They sell chewing tobacco, and there's whole different types of it. You know, one with a cherry flavor, one with this flavor, that flavor. Then they say a natural one. You know, the tobacco, full tobacco flavor, right? So this person was chewing tobacco for years when he was young. And then at one point he gave up. What happened? He got cancer in the jaw. Then what happened? They had to operate to save his life by cutting out his jaw. The whole thing. On one side, the whole thing. You know how painful that is? It's unbelievably painful. And now he can't eat properly because he doesn't have a jaw. He doesn't have any teeth there. Nothing. The bone and the teeth are gone on whole side of his face. That means that there's a hole. There's a big hole there. So they have to reconstruct it with either plastic surgery or something else. Now, he enjoyed chewing tobacco. He enjoyed it. What does it say here? The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. So chewing tobacco for him was a material pleasure, as it was for one of my brothers. Both of them suffered terribly for enjoying that type of perverted so-called happiness. So this is the law of nature. Now, it's not just chewing tobacco. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, that could be going to Disneyland, that could be going to Yosemite Park to see the geyser and to see the buffaloes. You know, some people die in the Yosemite Park. They go too close to the buffaloes kill them. You can look at it, let's see if you can find that. Lady goes too close to a buffalo in Yosemite Park and is killed. We don't realize how dangerous these places are. Or someone goes to the Grand Canyon, right? And they walk up to the edge of the canyon, right, to take a selfie. And they go like this, the selfie, and they bend over a little too much, they fall off and they die. That happens a lot. Every year there are people that do that. Do you see anything?
I read one thing, it's not buffaloes, but a couple killed in Yosemite rock slide.
From what?
Rock slide.
Oh, rock slide. Okay, well, rock slide.
That's more natural.
But it happens, the buffaloes sometimes kill them. They go too close to them. But anyway, they went there to be happy, right? And there's a rock slide, they're dead. Or you go to the Grand Canyon, and you want to take a selfie, and you're like this, trying to take a selfie. You bend over a little bit, boom, you fall over, you're dead. That happens too. Look that up. Grand Canyon. So we see the more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he or she is entrapped by material miseries. Did you find anything in the Grand Canyon?
Yeah, a hiker falls to his death at the Grand Canyon. That's one.
Right. But there are people that do selfies and they fall over.
Yeah, so how many people have died in Grand Canyon just in this year, 2022, maybe? It's like 900 people.
900 people. have died in the Grand Canyon? 900?
Not just 1 year, but yeah, it's just about 11 people die per year in Grand Canyon.
11 people. You're going to go to Grand Canyon, take your family? It's dangerous. It's a dangerous place. There's all these cliffs, you know, and then there could be rock slides, or you can make a mistake, go too close to the edge and fall over. Right? It happens every year. 11 people a year. See? So, the more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. This is a law of nature. It's not some statement by Prabhupada. He's stating a law of nature. Okay, so therefore it says, because it says, in the material concept of life, when one works for sense gratification, there is misery. But in the absolute world, when one is engaged in pure devotional service, there is no misery. The devotee in Krishna consciousness has nothing for which to lament or desire, since God is full in a living entity who is engaged in God's service and Krishna consciousness, becomes also full in himself. He is just like a river, cleansed of all dirty water. Because a pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he is naturally always joyful. Now, that's why I say, you cannot be a successful preacher if you're not joyful. If you go with a dour face, dour, D-O-U-R, look up that word, and you say, well, would you like to have a book? And he looks at you, the way you're talking, he says, wow, this person's not happy at all. I don't want to take that book. I might end up like that person. What's it say? Dour, D-O-U-R.
It says, relentlessly severe, stern, or gloomy.
Yes.
In manner or appearance.
Yeah, and they can tell by the way you speak and by your bodily movements. They can tell whether you're happy or not. Now, they're not going to take a book from you if you're not happy. They say, well, if I take this book, I'll end up like this person. They look like they're miserable, right? So, successful book distributors are people who are happy being Krishna conscious. They don't have any worries. They know that everything is temporary. So the misery is temporary and the happiness is temporary. So they're not disturbed by either one. They just continue their service with toleration. And but they're experiencing, because the pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he is naturally always happy. Internally, he's always happy. And he shows it externally. He does not lament for any material loss or aspire for gain, because he is full in the service of the Lord. So, don't go on Sankirtan if you're unhappy, because you're just going to ruin everything. You know, just stay at home and be unhappy. You know, because if you go on Sankirtan and you're not happy, you're going to give a wrong impression to the public. And they can tell right away. They can tell right away. You know, so, I mean, the karmis are not stupid for certain things. So they can tell if a person is happy or not. They can tell if a person is being honest or not. Right? I remember one time I was distributing prasadam and preaching at the same time in Paris, in this place called Les Halles, which is right in the center of the town, and a lot of people go there every day. And I was preaching to a group of Arabs, a lot of Arabs in France, and I was explaining regulative principles, and I said, no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, and they stopped me there and said, what? I said, no illicit sex. You don't have any sex? I said, no illicit sex. And this one guy would challenge me. He said, you tell me now, tell the truth. You're not having any sex? I said, no illicit sex. He said, what does that mean? I said, no sex outside of marriage, or no sex for pleasure. I said, you telling me you don't have sex for pleasure? I said, no. He said, I can't believe that. And he walked away. Right. Now, we have to be very careful on Sankirtan, right? Why? Because people are sharp. The karmis are sharp, and especially when you talk about sex, they're very adamant about it, right? So, unless we're actually following the regulative principles, they're not going to believe us. And even if you follow the regulative principles, they might not believe you. So, but we're always going to be challenged on Sankirtan. And we have to be very careful to follow the regulative principles. Otherwise, there'll be mud in the face. Let's put it like that. Mud on the face. Look that phrase up. Mud on the face. Okay. So the devotee has no desire for material enjoyment because he knows that every living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and therefore eternally a servant. He does not see in the material world someone as higher and someone as lower. Higher and lower positions are ephemeral or temporary, and a devotee has nothing to do with temporary appearances or disappearances. For him, or for the devotee, stone and gold are of equal value. So one time Prabhupada said this in a class, and a man raised his hand and challenged Prabhupada. He said, what? Stone and gold are of equal value? I don't accept that. So Prabhupada said, that's because you're not Krishna conscious. But someone who becomes Krishna conscious, for him, stone or gold are of equal value. So he said, once you advance in Krishna consciousness, then you'll be able to feel like that. But as long as you're not Krishna conscious, you think gold is wonderful and stone is worthless. But actually, gold is like a stone, right? But it has value, right? So to think that stone and gold are equal is completely strange for materialistic people. But actually, gold is considered yellow stool by devotees. Why? Because many people work just for gold, and it ruins their life in many ways and ruins relationships. So gold is considered yellow stool amongst sadhus. They're not interested in it. Of course, if someone gives them gold, they'll immediately spend it for spreading Krishna consciousness. They won't hold on to it. Why? Because wherever there is gold, the four regulative principles will gradually be broken. And that's a fact. When Parikshit Maharaj was going to kill the Kali, the person that was going to begin Kali Yuga, and he gave him 4 places where he could reside, wherever they're eating meat, engaging in gambling, intoxication, or illicit sex. After some time, Kali came back to Parikshit Maharaj and said, look, you're managing your kingdom in such a way that I can't find anybody who's doing those 4 things. Therefore, I can't get a start, and I'm supposed to start this thing. So he said, okay. So Kali said, so give me one other place where I can be. So Kali said, okay, wherever people are hoarding gold, you can be there. That's how Kali Yuga actually started, by hoarding gold. Right. And then Kali was able to find people that were hoarding gold, and then he started the Kali Yuga. So that's why I say for advanced devotees, gold and stone is the same thing, and gold is referred to as yellow stool, oftentimes. Okay. All right, so for a devotee, stone and gold are of equal value. So basically, Prabhupada told that man, look, you only an advanced devotee sees like this. You're not very much advanced in spiritual life, so you think gold has a lot of value for you, and stone is useless. But when you advance spiritually, you will not be so enamored by gold anymore. It's just another rock, that's all. It seems to be able to buy things and so forth, but those things will entangle you more in the life of birth and in the cycle of birth and death. So Prabhupada says, this is the Brahmabhuta stage, and this stage is attained very easily by the pure devotee. In that stage of existence, the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish. The idea of attaining the heavenly kingdom becomes phantasmagoria, like an illusion. And, in other words, the karmis, they want to go to the heavenly planets. The yogis, they want to merge into the Brahman. And the senses are like serpents whose poisoned teeth are broken. So the senses are compared to a snake. The snake has those two very sharp teeth, and he injects the poison through those teeth. But if you break those teeth, the snake cannot inject any poison in you. So that's what the snake charmers do. They catch a snake, and then usually cobras, right? And they know how to grab the head and hold it like that, and then the snake will open its mouth and they hold it like that. And they put it on some metal or wood, and they squeeze really hard, right? And it breaks the teeth. Once the snake's teeth are broken, they can no longer inject poison into your body. And by the way, they also extract the poison, right? So, and they use that poison for healing. Because in Ayurvedic, not Ayurvedic, not homeopathic. In the regular medicine, they use poisons. Well, homeopathic medicine also uses poisons, but in very small quantities. So snake venom is also used for healing things, sicknesses, but in very small quantities. That's why they catch these snakes and they extract all the poison. All right, so then our senses become like snakes whose teeth are broken, so we're no longer controlled by them. Right. Okay, so the world is miserable for the materially infected person, but for a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha, or the spiritual sky. The highest personality in this material universe is no more significant than an ant for a devotee. Such a stage can be achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who preached pure devotional service. So, therefore, this neutrality is because we see the presence of Krishna in the heart of everyone. And we don't discriminate. This person's good, that person's bad. This animal is good, that animal is bad. We see that all living entities have Krishna in their heart as Paramatma. So we have neutrality. We don't discriminate between people. And we have equality. We see that everyone is a walking temple, basically. So we show respect. Okay, so we'll stop right there. There's more to this. We'll discuss this some more one more time, and then we'll stop. Are there any questions? So in the Brahma-Bhuta verse, the equality, the neutrality is explained. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. So he doesn't say this one's good, that one's bad. Now, if you're a leader of a temple, then you must discriminate, right? But if you're not a leader, but let's say you have a family, again, you have to discriminate. You're not going to let bad people associate with your kids, right? Anyway, nowadays people don't care, but previously, people wanted to protect their kids so they wouldn't let them be exposed to bad association. So you have to discriminate like that. But the Uttama Adhikari, they don't discriminate. They don't see good and bad. They just see everyone as potentially a devotee of Krishna. But if you're a leader, either of a temple or of a family, then you must discriminate. You must see 4 types of people. One is ignorant people, and then there's the innocent people, and there's God, and then there's the demons. So you have to see 4 types of categories of people. And God you surrender to and worship. Devotees you make friendship. The innocent, the ignorant people, you try and help them become Krishna conscious. And the demons, you avoid their association. And you don't let your kids associate with demons. Okay. But when you come to a higher level, and which you cannot achieve, let's say, easily, at that point you see the equality of all living entities. And you remain neutral, not upset by insults or setbacks, and not exhilarated by great successes. You remain neutral in all situations. Okay, so are there any questions?
Yeah.
Okay, so neutrality is 5th chapter, 20th verse. And equality is 5th chapter, 18th verse. As well as the Brahma Bhuta verse, 18th chapter, 54th verse.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, how do you tolerate?
How do you tolerate? Okay. You tolerate, number 1, because everything is temporary in the material world. So whether there's a bad situation, it's not going to last forever. And whether there's a good situation, it's not going to last forever. So if you have to be patient, all situations come to an end. Number 2, you cannot tolerate without having a very strong attachment to Krishna. So when you're having some bad thing happen to you, you increase your chanting and you meditate more on Krishna, and then you can tolerate the situation. Right? This chanting Hare Krishna is the most important thing in the life of a devotee. Actually, there's 2 most important things. Number 1, associating with good devotees. Like one day I saw you, like last week I saw you, one boy was sitting here and you were behind him and you're going like this. What does that mean? When you go like that, right? Behind his head, what does that mean? Do you know? Huh?
I'm insulting him.
You're making fun of him. That's even worse. You're making fun of him. So you shouldn't do things like that, right? Because when you make fun of someone, it means that you feel superior to that person, and you're basically making that person inferior to you. So that's type of bad discrimination. So you never make fun of people because you're insulting. Yeah, you are insulting them, but it's because you feel superior to that person. Now, how would you like it if you're going like this to someone and someone comes behind you and goes like that? That means you're 2 times insulted right? You're only insulting one time, right? But someone comes behind you, you don't see them, and they go like this, right? So you don't want to do things like that because you're getting into a very bad mental state that you feel superior to this person. You're making fun of them. And in other words, it is insulting. All right? So you have to learn to respect everyone, not to make fun of them and make them look stupid. Right? So to be a good person, you'll be happy because people will like you. But if you make fun of other people, they won't like you. And then you start making enemies, and people won't want to associate with you because you make fun of them. So you have to learn to control yourself. And when you feel as if you can't control yourself, you sit down and just chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare, until those bad feelings go away. And you meditate that Krishna is in my heart. Therefore, whatever I'm doing, Krishna is watching me. I can't, there's no privacy. You can't hide from Krishna. He's right in your heart. He's watching everything you're doing. He knows all your desires. He knows everything you've done. So therefore, you can't get away with anything. So if you make fun of other people, it'll come back to you also. People will make fun of you. If you bully someone, it'll come back to you. Someone will bully you. So to avoid all that, you act like a good devotee, always being kind and gentle, never making fun of people, never insulting people, and always helping people become Krishna conscious. Then everyone will love you. Everyone will respect you. And if everyone respects you, your mind is peaceful and happy. If you have enemies that don't like you and speak bad about you because they feel as if you insulted them, then you're never going to be peaceful. You're going to say, this person, I'm going to get revenge on him. And so you have bad thoughts. So always be a devotee. Devotees are always gentle and kind, and they try and help other people become Krishna conscious. They don't force them, but they try and help them. If nothing, they at least give prasadam, right? So, yeah, you want to tolerate things, then you have to be good. Then you can tolerate, and patient. Because nothing is eternal in the material world. Everything is temporary. Okay, any other questions? If not, then we'll have Aarti. Guru Puja. Haribol. Okay, who's going to lead the kirtan? Okay, she'll chant.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bandha Mohi Savadhana Mate
Bandhu Mui Savadana Mate
Jahara Prashad E Bhavato
Janara Prasade Vai E Bhavatoriya Jai
Krishna prapti ho jaha aate
Krishna Prapti Oya Te
Guru mukha padma vakya chitete koriya agya
Janara Prasade
Arana kori ho mane asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uthamagati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Ese Uttamagati
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarvasa
Chatudana Dilo Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se
Chaksusdana Dilaje Janmi Janmi Prabhu Se
Divya Jnana Reda Prakasito
Ye Prasade
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasa Jate
Prema Bhakti Jahote Ke Vidya Vinasa Jate
Virigaya Jaharacha Rito
Vedigaya Jarito
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamajanara Bandhu
Lokanata Loke Raji Vana
Lokanath
Aha Prabhu Koro Doya Deha More Pada Chaya
Ha Prabhu Koro Doya Deha Moria Padachaya
Eve Jasa Gusu Tribu Vana
Ebeyasa Gusachibhuva
Prabhupada Patitapa Vana Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pastyatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Pararajagachas Shrimad is divine grace. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava ki jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Gaurang ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapur Dham ki jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Ganga Maya ki jai, Jamuna Maya ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to Samma glories, all glories to Samma glories, all glories to Samma glories. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhakti Vishamati Bhakti Paskati Dasatarane. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet of great on river. By his grace, one can cross the ocean into his suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my conscience purified by the words emanating from his lotus feet. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing this character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, defender and warrior and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful to us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana ki jai.